for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have all 5 board members present this evening, and we will entertain calls to the public. Would anyone like to address the board this evening? We have no one addressing the board this evening. We'll move on to our reports. Our first report is Dr. Boyd.
I'm going to go ahead and get my report now, and then you can ask any questions on item 14 that might pertain to COVID and our processes and procedures.
Okay.
The first thing, and I gave board members a copy so you didn't have to try to remember everything I say. The first visual that I gave you, I did give out last week. It's a little bit of a repeat. Is the current AZDHS data is updated each Thursday, so October 1st, last Thursday was the most recent installment of this data chart. That would be on the first page. For benchmark 1, you can meet that benchmark one of 2 ways: a decline in cases or having less than 100 cases per 100,000. You can see that we went from 30 to 17 and then back to 23 cases in a 3-week period. That's why the 1A has an X. If we did have a slight increase instead of continual decrease. B, we still are well below the 100 cases per 100,000 individuals. So that's why we met it in criteria B. The second criteria, as of October 1st, 2 consecutive weeks with percent positivity below 7%. We were well below the 7%, even below the 5% in the most 2 recent weeks. And then on the third indicator, 2 consecutive weeks of hospital visits for COVID-like illnesses below 10%, we are below the 5%. So that's as of October 1st, and I couldn't go on the data will be this Thursday. I do get on every Thursday morning and push refresh and all the data out there. The next piece of information is the staff survey that was generated last Thursday. Just to get a couple of brief pieces of data on where our staff is. We've done this multiple times throughout the pandemic, kind of keep a pulse on what's going on with our staff members. Because in the last board motion on our phase 1 return to school plan, October 19th was slated as returning all kids in person. I thought I would get some data on how the teachers are feeling about that now that they've been in the baby schedule for a few weeks. So as you can see, the question was, do you support the plan to have all students on campus starting October 19th? Should the data remain near or below the current numbers? For 458 responses as of 2:50 this afternoon when I printed this clip of the revised page, has 299 or 65.7% are yes, they all include that. Some of the middle yeses go either way. Some of them, the only way to get your kids back is to wear the masks. They'll do it, but they would like them back only if the masks aren't in play. The reason being, for some teachers, it is difficult to have collaboration and communication with the masks, and the smaller numbers they can spread out. It makes that opportunity more prevalent, and everybody's crowded in the classroom and they're all in that, so they won't have an opportunity to have to be in the mask and not be able to collaborate with them. The third is no. Concerned with the virus spreading and continuing to spread. You can see 28.8% are still concerned and not ready for help. As for our safety, that middle piece, there's some really good news. I printed it for you in black and white, so just think of left to right. The first 2 columns being good, positive answers. The third column being an okay answer, meaning meeting my improvement, and then the last column being the significant concern column, or the needs major improvement. We were really excited on each of these. So I think this was lower on our first survey, if you remember. We did a survey right when we were returning to school on the confidence level in these strategies, and the results were not as good as these results. So we've had some really honest dialogue. We've had some teachers who are willing to contact you, contact one of us, contact their principals. We're trying to dial in continually on the areas that improvement. You can see, staff masks were a little bit of a concern. If you remember the first survey, and I should have given it to you, we did not have a lot of confidence in ourselves in the masks. And we did, over the first couple of weeks, have to have a lot of reminders about masks. But you can see how high the mostly excellent bar is for staff. There's a handful on the need major improvement, and we'll continue to work on those. Masks are not negotiable. Student masks, mostly adequate. We have to remind them that I will tell you our principal reported today that we are not having any significant issue with major insubordination. We have to say, pull your mask up. Occasionally we have to say, where's your mask, and hand them another one. We've had a few discipline incidents with masks that they're going to completely refuse and they go home. But overall, mostly excellent and mostly adequate. There is some, that's the highest area for needs to manage. So we're working with people continuously to make sure the mask mandates are enforced. Our screening processes are going well. I will tell you, as the weather changes, there are some concerns with the thermometers. We want to make sure we have adequate readings. We've had some preliminary meetings with Vicky and the health department, the health nurse, about are these thermometers adequate in the cold weather, what's the backup plan for the thermometers, can we order other devices that screen or weekly or what they call it. And so we're going to get together with Aaron and finance, Vicky and Jerry and myself. That backup plan is ready. But currently, there's a high level of confidence in our current screening process. The visitor procedure is going well. It's hard to tell parents they can't come on campus or visitors, but we've done that consistently across campuses, and people are getting used to it. It just minimizes the turns on campus. Bus procedures, kind of a midline between mostly excellent and mostly adequate. But again, pretty low numbers in the major improvement and minor improvement. We are again, Jeremy just had a meeting today again about what's the procedure when a student shows up to the bus without a mask. We do have face shields we put on them. Nobody is transported without any protection. That student shows up multiple times and has to use our face shield. Then what happens? We do know our referrals are down. The behavior is improved because of all of the strategies that we have on the bus. But we're going to randomly pull some tapes and look on some of the routes to make sure, get our own data that these are going well. We'll kind of dig in a little deeper why the mostly excellent bar is a little lower on that one. Lunch procedures are going pretty well. We've got a lot of our schools have, especially our elementaries, have put in some barriers on one side of the table to the next. They're ingenious. Some of the, Mr. Harvey has built an entire system at Qualified where the kids can be on the two sides of the table because there's a barrier between them and spread out. If the school doesn't have that, some schools are having them on one side of the table only. Those procedures are going well, but again, we'll dig in a little deeper to see what areas we need to make improvements in regards to. Some people just do that. And then playground is probably the toughest. The kids need breaks, they need to go outside, they want to run and play. The kids, high schoolers, need to go outside. So, again, we'll just keep monitoring that and dial in, and we'll make sure that we're safe on the front of important skills. That's how our staff feels about our procedures. And then finally, I asked this question, and I may have inadvertently given or implied that because I'm asking, they're thinking about not wearing masks. That's not the case. We are going to continue wearing masks. The school district's mask mandate will move forward to the unforeseen future. But I was curious where our staff is in regards to the mask. So you can see that more than half prefer that we continue wearing masks. Well, I guess it shifted. It kept going back and forth over the midline. It's about 50-50 that the 47% prefer we continue wearing to the end, others hope that we can stop wearing them on the first allowed walk. that opportunity would be, when the data shows a pandemic, it's by the experts determined to be added in the over. So we'll continue to follow the science and data. As far as communication and transparency, it has come to my attention that some staff and some community members may feel the district is not forthcoming regarding positive COVID results. I've heard that from a couple of people. I saw a survey on the social media. I heard from a couple of people on the phone yesterday that there's been an outbreak or there's been positive COVID results and we haven't told people that. I just want to assure you as board members and any staff or community member watching this board meeting that we are committed to being as transparent as possible. We can't give names and specifics and identifying information, neither can the health department. But we do notify staff when there's a suspected COVID case that's been near them. We notify staff members who may have been in close contact with a suspected COVID case. But it's important to remember that suspected does not mean positive. So we have been moving with an abundance of caution, and telling people, someone had a fever or someone went home with some of the major symptoms, and we always let them know and make a personal decision if they also want to go and get tested. We want to stop anybody from going and leaving. But the great news was until yesterday we had no positives. So from August 17th through yesterday, any of those suspected cases or anybody that went to be tested were negative. So that is good news. As of yesterday, we did have our first positive case. And so I've been on the phone with the health department today. This is actually the first opportunity I had to tell you as a group. I talked to some of you individually. We talked to the school. We talked to the individual staff members who might have been around in close contact with this elementary student. They've all gone to get tested. The ones who have received their tests have been negative. We are sending a letter to the schoolmates. The health department gave me a form letter that we could customize for our situation, and we will let anyone know who is in close contact. The term close contact means within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. So it's really important to know that it's not just that somebody was in the room or on the campus. Like Aaron and I are in this meeting together, this entire meeting. If I find out that I'm positive, Aaron was never within 6 feet of me for 15 minutes. That is considered not a close contact. So the health department encourages us to not over-notify by sending an email to the entire district. But at the same time, we understand the district and our community wants to know. So we're going to kind of find a mid-ground, and I had a great suggestion from a board member that said maybe a weekly posting on our website or a community letter that gives sort of general data. So we are going to start doing that. Where we don't give any specifics. I'm not going to say an X grade, male or female, at certain school, in a certain circumstance, such as positive, but I will say, in the unit, I did have a positive case, and we followed this protocol. And then I'll also include the ADDHS dashboard data. What I do for staff every week, when I do my KUSD emails, but we'll include the community going forward. I thought that was an excellent feedback. The student that was positive, just for your information and the community's information, was out of school from last Tuesday, the 29th. Hasn't been back. Was tested on the 1st. When the positive was made, and still hasn't been in the school since the 29th. The student had no fever or any other symptoms at school, is reasonably asymptomatic. We're working with the health department to ensure communication pathways are clear and working properly. Because this is the first instance in the area, according to the health department. I have spent hours, literally hours, the last couple of days, and multiple phone calls with Whitefield, as I'm sure all of you do, that this communication pathway has to be clear, it has to be timely, and people need to know that the only way this is going to work. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about October 19th. I'm just gonna make a few remarks now, and then you can ask me some questions when you get to item 14. As noted in the survey results, the majority of staff and administrators want all students back on campus. While the AD schedule has gone very well, and I'm very proud of what our teachers and staff members have done with the AD schedule, I could go on about that. There are a number of benefits to having a reduced number of kids on campus. The educational gap does continue to expand. Students are not completing their home assignments. And we are communicating ad nauseum with parents and students, but we're not getting the results. When they're at home, and not enough of them is completing the work. Teachers are having to repeat instruction, track down work, spend precious classroom time backtracking, modifying assignments to fit the time frames. We need students in school in order to provide a fully adequate instructional environment. However, at the same time, we are aware that the pandemic data should drive our decision regarding student attendance. Our numbers look great now, but we all know this can shift unexpectedly at any time. I wish I could tell our community that we are coming back on the 19th through the end of the semester. The best I can do is to say we will watch the data each week and make decisions in the best interest of safety. If the data stays similar to what it is now, we should be on campus with all students for as long as possible. If we see a substantial change in the data when it comes out on the Thursday, we should be prepared to return to an AD schedule out of necessity. To me, the worst case scenario is returning to a virtual model. Our kids were not successful on this model. While our teachers did a great job and many of our kids thrived, overall, it was just not the right model for our kids to grow academically. So going forward, we should monitor the data closely, plan to have kids in school, but be prepared to return to an AD if necessary. I think, the principal said today that what the staff most wanted was some notice. They don't want last minute decisions and changes. And we've done our best, I think, as a board and as a team to have our tiered in model. I think we've done a great job. I'm actually pretty proud of the virtual into the AD and now considering the full student. But I cannot promise, as a superintendent, you can't promise as a board, community can't promise that the data won't change. And if the data changes substantially, we need to react to that. So, unpopular for me to say, but necessary for me to say, that we have to be prepared at any time to go back to an AD or even back to a virtual, depending on the severity of the data. We're good now. We look really good. We're hoping this Thursday we continue to look good, and next Thursday we continue to look good. And if we do, there is no reason why we shouldn't be on campus. But if that changes, I would like the ability to have a system in place where it might not be advanced notification, but it's predictable. One of our principals suggested today having like a stoplight model. I'll give credit to him. A stoplight model where there's a red, yellow, and green light on Facebook and on our website page. And then each Thursday the data sort of updated on there. And again, we have to have a pretty substantive change right now to switch models. We don't want to switch models. If there's a sudden outbreak where we can change drastically, we go to a yellow one. So green light on all the school. Everybody comes to school on Monday. A yellow light might be there's been a significant thing in the data and we list it. We're gonna have to do AD while these things decide. And then to me, a red would only be if the governor said we got to close schools again. We would reserve the red for something like what happened in July. That's my report, and you can ask me questions when we get to the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. I do have one report. I attended the annual award a few weeks ago to the Human Chamber of Commerce, and those awards recognize outstanding citizens of Human who have made significant contributions to our community. And I want to let everyone know that Dr. Dormer was recognized as Educator of the Year. So congratulations. that. And if it's okay with the rest of the board, we are going to remove on item D on the approved personnel term list, the seal and floor spot. We can remove her from item D. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Ms. Whitehead,
Second.
second from Ms. Young. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Oh, I'm sorry.
It won't fail.
Item 7, approved books on display for the required 60 days beginning August 11th, 2020.
Members of the board, these series have been on display for the prior time with no public interest.
Any questions for the board or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 8, discuss specifics of proposed energy performance contract with Mid-State Energy.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the energy management project that we've worked on now for the last couple of years. So we're right in the cusp of being able to push some of that through. So this item is just to discuss some of the basics related to the project. So mainly, this is a $21 million project that will be financed and will be paid back over 20 years using the savings that we get from the energy conservation measures that we put into place. So a few things about this project, a few of the things is just district-wide. They're the biggest money generated. So that comes down to LED lighting throughout this district, inside and outside. There's plumbing valve systems and water fixture upgrades throughout the district at every single school. Those two things are the money generators, essentially. Our flow, so to speak, and the amount of water that you use when you flush your toilet is extremely high, and these types of things will put that into a more measurable, sustainable amount of energy use. So there's a couple of things that generate some money, but they're not like those two that will drive all of it. So that would be solar canopies at 11 of our sites. Those will be some shaded parking and also give us some energy rebates to get us money back from that, the energy we generate off of that. And then the installation of ionization equipment in our HVAC systems. So I don't know if you've heard about any of this ionization technology, but it's technology that purifies air and creates better ventilation. And so instead of being like a product you put on your wall, it's a product that will be inside of our HVAC system. So all of our schools will have that. So that's for purifying air and increasing the ventilation. We thought that was a pretty big deal considering what we're society is. And so all those things generate some funds, and then they ultimately, we have some HVAC upgrades. Those don't generate funds, those get us back on track. Those are money suckers because they're all in bad shape. A lot of them are extremely old and they're can't even perform the maintenance that we can do. And so we're using a lot of the savings garnered from the other projects to get some HVAC upgrades into the schools that are desperately in need. There's no way we can touch the whole district. Our HVAC problems are too substantial to touch with this $120 million project. But at Manzanita, Walnut, Mount Tipton, Lee Williams, and Los Angeles, we'll be able to do almost 200 HVAC equipment upgrades, as well as new chillers at Manzanita and Los Angeles. The district will have to look elsewhere to fix its other HVAC issues within the district. So that's the project in a nutshell, and I just want to reiterate, it's really important to understand that by law, we are allowed to enter into this contract, but only if the savings we generate pay for the loan. There's no way this district can afford a $20 million loan on itself. This is like bond level funding using the savings through the energy and conservation measures. So next steps, you'll see on the next item, we have a resolution. That resolution will allow us to go out and seek competitive financing. Once that financing is in place, we have a final investment grade audit by the energy team. We'll have an itemized project with every single thing that's going to be upgraded. We'll have the financing in place. We'll bring that back to you for final execution, and then we'd be able to break ground, which should take 12, 14 months from the day that we start, as work will be done in the evenings, as well as on the weekends. And, lastly, in your packet, I did say that we would be seeking a third-party project manager. Since I wrote that, we decided to go a different route. Devin and I worked really hard with that team that was proposing to be a project manager, and Devin and I believe that that would be potentially a waste of, not a duplication of effort by the energy team and this group that wants to help us. We believe that the energy team with Devin can manage the project. So that's a little bit of a change from what you saw in the past. I know that's a lot, but if there's any questions.
It just, to me, that seems like a huge project for Devin to have to manage in addition to all of his other responsibilities.
Yeah, I think that was my reluctancy in the area, but when you see what the team was saying they would offer versus what the energy management team that's already in place is saying they're gonna offer, it felt like a lot of the same things. And so Devin, correct me if I'm wrong, Devin believes his role doesn't change very much with the third-party manager in play or not, if I understand what you've been saying about that. He just says their help that they're offering may not necessarily be absolute value to the district. I guess I agree with that, rather largely.
Then they would also count additional costs if they were involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
100,000.
I agree, we need the hands-on, which could end up doing anything.
If we were to run into a problem where it is becoming too big of a burden, we would enter negotiations with a third party.
Any other questions for Mr. Sherman? Okay, we'll move on, thank you, Aaron, to item 9. Which states, consider and if deemed acceptable, adopt a resolution authorizing a lease purchase of certain energy conservation measures within the district from Midstate Energy LLC through a tax-exempt equipment lease purchase agreement with a bank or financial institution as determined by the district with assistance from a placement agent, authorizing the execution of various documents relating to such energy conservation measures and the financing thereof, and delegating to the district superintendent and district finance director the authority to select the lesser and escrow agent and complete such documents with the parameters set forth in the resolution.
How do you like that?
all yourself?
No. A lawyer did that. When I was like, how did they tie all that grammar together? It's insane. So essentially it does exactly what it, by approving this resolution, you're gonna give the authority to Gretchen and myself to use a placement agent to get competitive financing for this energy project within the parameters that I've stated. You don't have to read the resolution out loud.
Yes, Ms. Weiser.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to approve, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 10, adopt resolution to enter IGA contract with KS State Bank to finance 6 new buses.
I think you might have missed.
Did I miss something?
No, you missed the two. It's a government obligation contract with K-State Bank, KSA.
Oh, sorry. Okay, adopt resolution to enter government obligation contract with KS State Bank to finance 6 new buses.
So,
That's IGA covered.
Mr. President, members of the board, I brought this at the last meeting to seek financing. We secured that financing, so this resolution allows me to sign that paperwork and fund those process.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Young, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 11, approve district's recommendation to award local vendor of hardware and small tool RFP 21-10-26. This is a 5-year award, which must be reviewed every year.
Mr.
I
President,
have to recuse myself from this item.
Mr. President, members of the board, we went out to bid for the local hardware and small tools. We only had one vendor put an actual bid, and that was King and True Value. So the district recommends awarding this award to King and True Value.
I just have one question. When we look at what their pricing versus what would be available elsewhere, are we comparable?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing it locally, but we're getting substantial discounts to work with them locally. And at that $50,000 level, we would have to see quotes at every turn.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ms. Wiser,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Young, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0 with Mr. Ritter recusing himself. Item 12, approve IPA with the city team that allows use and development of district property as a part of the city's Sunbelt Park project.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is my favorite item because it's a piece of good luck for our district. We have some substantial flooding issues at White Cliffs Middle School. As we were looking for ways to fix those, the city at the same time is developing, wants to develop an area over there for a park. And part of the development will be putting in, I think they're called retention walls and diverting the flood waters away from our school. So by allowing them to use that small portion of our land on the northeastern side of Desert Willow, and making sure they have access to that continually throughout the agreement, we'll get all those flooding issues solved by the city. And the sooner we have that in place, the sooner potentially the city has it in place and breaks ground before we have any more substantial rains. That allows the district to move into concentrating on the on-site flooding issues or drainage issues and fix those on our own. So this will save us a lot of money and put a park out there.
Thank you. Any questions or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 13, approve fiscal year 2020 annual financial report.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is my final item of the evening. This is our AFR. We have reported along the way exactly where we would land. We did do some extra spending as we finish the year to respond to our COVID issues. We officially have dipped into our reserves, and since the year has started, we have substantially dipped into our reserves. So we are spending a lot of money, and so I just want the board to start considering or contemplating the fact that we could be short some revenue because of enrollment and other issues, and spending is up. There are some outlets, hopefully this emergency grant through the governor's office will offset a huge amount of the spending we did on COVID. And if that's the case, we should go to regular ship without too much of a pickup in our operations. But the future races are definitely.
What is our enrollment number right now?
Based, we're down to 50 because of my projection off the adopted, which would have been the final. I'm sorry, we're not asking me.
That's fine. I was gonna ask if you guys got the numbers today. It's in the same region as you, anywhere from 250 to 450, depending on how you look at it. We have 250 officially not enrolled in Synergy, but then we have a number of other kiddos who aren't showing up at all, so our security officers calling each of them saying, are you coming back or are you going? There's a margin of error there, but
And in that real-time funding, right now, that 250 students is worth 900,000 revenue. That's cut out of our budget, could come up with it if students come back, could go down further if enrollment continues to go down. There are some concerns.
Any questions for him or a motion?
I will say, if you don't mind me again, our enrollment is less down than the other districts. I don't have to report to elementary, but I know a lot of meetings and all the superintendents are talking about declining enrollment in some of the larger districts in the cities are having to collapse classrooms. And we have not had to do that yet.
I did have a question.
Yes.
If, 208 passes, then we will come back and review the budget and amend it?
If the revenue is gonna be offered by the state in the fiscal year, yes. I'm working on a revision now for December to account for new spending in this, reduction in revenue, but I expect to flip around and do another one in potentially February. It's just the nature of this year, trying to make sure we stay up. If we get money, we definitely want to hold that in and spend it.
I'll make a motion to approve fiscal year 2020 annual financial report.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 14, information and discussion and possible action on the most recent COVID data and return to learn strategy. So Dr. Dorner gave her report, and she asked that we save our questions till now. So do you have any questions for Dr. Dorner? And I'll start. I just have one. Can you review what KRMC does with the school district as far as like if someone needs to be tested or what they've offered?
And with KRMC, a lot of our folks are going to KRMC and actually MCC is also been a great vendor, but KRMC cares allows any student or any staff member to, fill out a simple, questionnaire name and so forth and talk with a health person and then, make an appointment to be tested, all free of charge. They're usually tested that same day if they call in the morning. It might be the afternoon or the following morning, and then results are then returning 24 hours on a regular basis or now in grade 6. Yeah, like I said, staff with MCC, I think they're testing 6 days a week. Great.
I was impressed by our numbers and what department they go. I am concerned about the rise that's happening across the country right now. But having how soon will the negative ion, be able to go into the venting,
It's gonna be school by school, and so, you could see some schools with it within 6 to 7 to 8 months, whereas some schools will take that whole 14 months or so.
So not even the school is covered. Because I understand negative ion, when they're put in there, then they will, all viruses that there will it makes them sick. And then put them in a freezer. That's disappointing, we don't have that.
I know.
Because our old ventilation systems are, so I've been concerned about how these classrooms are gonna look without being able, we won't be able to do the 6 feet social distancing with all the students back. We're really taking a gamble here.
Have the staff or building administrators talk about all the students being back, what could they do to possibly improve social distancing as far as, outside classrooms, trying to manage if one section of class has so many students trying to separate them out, or have they discussed that, or do they have a plan?
They do discuss it on a regular basis. They talk with the secondaries on how to, mitigate hallway traffic, for example, in middle school. The teachers walk the kids from class to class and they have it spaced out and they go together in groups versus just letting them out individual. So there's those kinds of strategies. There's strategies at some of the schools where they're planning to have half the kids outside while the other half are inside eating kind of swap. Many of them are not taking their whole classes down and sitting them in a little huddle when they're rushing and going one at a time. They have a lot of time, some of the secondary, that's by grade level, the elementary, to answer your question, yes, but there's a sizes overall are down. We haven't changed our staffing, even though we've lost some kids, we have other kids online. But the fact is, the school will have quite as many kids. Jerry has had a warm body count done. Jesse Bradley led the charge on that, just to see our actual warm bodies in attendance. We know how many kids we have in synergy, but how many kids are actually coming to the campuses. And there's about 3,100 warm bodies on an A day, and this is about 3,100. The same, so the attendance is very similar, it's about 3,100 coming across all of the campuses, so that would put 6,200 versus 30 last year, we had 7,100, so there's always attendance lowering it. Like I said, 100,000. It's a lot. Our teachers and our principals are working on all cylinders. It's a very mentally exhausting challenge to be so hyper vigilant from 7 a.m. until the doors close in the evening, constantly watching what surfaces are being touched, and if our masks up in the room, and how can we make sure our hallways. It's a lot, and they're doing a very good job. They put in a lot of work during this baby medical to get the process in place.
So I have a couple of questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
So how many students will be in, what's our max number of students will be in a classroom when we go back?
We don't have a maximum, because we're public education, when kids come, we bring
Based
them.
on our
to
numbers,
However, we are running, the highest, there may be outliers here and there that, like Charlie said, we have to work on, like I had a high school AD that was very lopsided based on the alphabet, and we couldn't make it. So we actually added a teacher, back in 3 weeks ago. So we'll deal with those outliers. We just had a first grade situation at Wallapai, where the first grades at Wallapai were pretty large, 28, which is still lower than the 32 they had last year, but that's kind of big. So we're working with Jerry Arby and Vicky Trujillo and how to add another person and bring it. So to answer your question, I can email you this exact data if you like it. Low 20s, I would say. Is a pretty good average. Mid 20s is pretty typical. But we don't have a lot of high 20s or even just a few.
so low 20, what does that put square footage per student in the classroom?
I don't know.
Not a lot, right? Okay, so we have the.
What would you think?
Go ahead.
If you want that data, I can get it for you.
That's good.
Because we've done it, it just isn't sitting in my head, I didn't know if we've done it.
I didn't know I was gonna ask that. So have you reached out to the students that have unenrolled and asked for one?
We have contacted most students multiple times. Early on, some of the kids that withdrew, it was before the school year even started. It was a parental decision that we're in a pandemic and I don't want to be in public school and I'm going to be homeschooled. We kept that online enrollment open all the way, through our transition to AB because of the things we talked about last time. We gave, I think, 3 weeks for anybody that wanted to add themselves to the online time to do that. We had some takers, but not many. So really, it's a variety of things. We have had a number of withdrawals to out of state, people relocating, that's very typical. We have had some parents that have decided they like having their kids at home and are doing that online at-home version. And we have had a few that have evolved where they thought they might be okay coming up, but we it's just a variety.
So when we survey current parents, we have to know that 250 students that may have felt a certain way about leaving those that feel a certain way. So that's how surveys get to be made. Can you tell us what is an outbreak defined as? If the school has an outbreak, what does that mean?
An outbreak according to the Mojave County Health Department or the Arizona Department of Health, I was just in a seminar on this yesterday with the superintendents around the state who had experienced what you would call an outbreak. It's considered two students. And so they're epidemiologically connected on the campus where one got it from the other and was not from the home environment or the primary source that the virus is typically contracted. In those cases, it is, an outbreak does not necessarily mean the school shuts down. That's one thing I learned yesterday. You work with your health department on a contact tracing, where the outbreak originated and what's going on, and you make a decision that way. In one of my phone calls with the health department in the last couple of days, I asked that very similar question, because I said, you know, communication is key. We really need to have current and accurate communication, because this is a big deal. And we don't want to stumble upon an outbreak by having to find out on our own, you know. We're not told, and maybe it's self-reported by a parent, maybe it's not, but this is like school closing information, that we need to have this information. So, we are working really closely with the health department to make sure that we have those numbers. In short, to answer that question.
So, what, in that case, we only found out about that student because the parents reported.
Yes.
The issue was, we had to fill out a form requesting the information from Mojave, Health Department.
Yes.
And then they had to get it back. So, what is that communication structure? Now that we've had a chance to talk to them, what should be the correct process? Because that can't possibly be the correct process.
Yep, and it is.
Okay, so that's a problem.
It is a problem. So here's the conversation, and I don't want to, speak really ill or poorly in the Mojave County Health Department, even though we can all be frustrated by this process. But according to them, when we originally established our plan, it was, Aaron made some calls, Jerry, myself, we all called and we all came together. This is the information we have. And that procedure was the health department is the first person or the first entity that should know there's a positive case. The last tests, there's a positive, they report to the health department, they inform us. So that's the expectation. There, that could be, and same thing, if we have someone who has symptoms, we send them to a lab, we should tell the health department, we have sent someone and they told us that they're positive, and that double communication is a safety net to work with for the community. Their process has evolved apparently recently, to where they cannot give us identifying information when there is a positive. The HIPAA piece, according to our local health department, is in place because that's what the Arizona Department of Health is telling them. So I very passionately and clearly shared my expectation on behalf of our district that we have between 6,000 and 7,000 kids and 900 employees, and anybody should know if there's a positive with us. And so, we had a very lengthy conversation. They were not in disagreement with me. This was literally, I think the call ended about 4:30 this afternoon. They're gonna have a meeting with the state representative tomorrow, and both of them, so that this communication situation can be cleaned up. Because it does concern me if we solely rely on self-reported positive, that is. But I can confirm, because they can tell us if there are any positives. So that's the good news. I can call and say,
Can, or they will initiate that communication.
right. We can call every day and say, are there any positives? Are there any positives associated with our school? And you bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna be doing that. And then, then we know if there are no positives, okay, that's good news. We can rest assured that things are fine. Our strategies are working, we're not going to have an outbreak. If we recall, and they would say there are positives, I think I've gotten them where I can identify even a school, that would be very helpful. But what we're really looking for is more specific.
Yeah, I don't know how they're doing contact tracing if they're not starting with the mass gathering that is at school.
Yeah,
You were jumping in?
I have a
that
follow-up
was one of
question.
my agenda items today.
I have a follow-up question for what you had just answered about that number that it becomes an outbreak. So you said two, if they occurred, one was the causation of the other. Correct? So what happens if we have one at a high school and one, say they were in the same family, and one's at high school, one's at elementary, is that still an outbreak?
Not necessarily. What they were telling me today was, you have to have conversation and that contact tracing conversation and look at, where it might have been spread from one to the other. If they were isolated and they didn't have anything to do with each other, you might deal with them separately. And the superintendents that were in the Zoom conference call I was in yesterday, one was in Tucson, one was in Cave Creek, and I think the third one was in Snowflake. All three of their situations were different, and that's what Jim just brought up. Their outbreaks were poor parent behavior, if you will. It wasn't a poor procedure on the school part, it wasn't a lack of identifying and noticing on the school part, it was a parent who said that doing school was positive. In that case, they only had to quarantine that classroom, not necessarily the whole school. At Cave Creek, they had a high school situation where it was one student to another, and I think they ended up with 5 in the end, or was and then they had to approach it differently than Tucson did. I think in the Cave Creek case, there were classes that were done. So
We have to remember that elementaries have specials as well, so they're not isolated to a classroom. They are traveling to different, gyms, the music rooms, the lab. So that's the thing as well. Did you say that it is a personal decision if they want to go get tested if they have a student in their classroom?
yeah, we can, and Angela can jump in as the HR person, but we cannot force somebody to be tested. I cannot say, Carol, you must get tested. But I can say to Carol, you cannot come back for 14 days if you have been in close contact and need you to be, away. And then if she decides to get tested and tells us that she has a negative, or shows us that she has a negative, then it's a different path. We can't force someone to get tested.
So, the CDC updated their guidelines yesterday. The expectations that of traveling beyond 6 feet. And the virus can hang in the air for up to several hours. That is the new update yesterday. How will that affect our close contact definition?
Well, according to the Mojave County Health Department, and I was on the phone with them today multiple times, they're still defining close contact as after the same.
So they haven't updated yet?
They must not have, because when they interviewed me, they used the exact same verbiage that I used to do in 6 weeks.
So that's an update on Monday from the CDC. So sick leave, I did ask Angela to provide some information regarding how many, sick days have been used by staff or teachers since August 8th. Angela, I would love to read that email, but my computer died and the outlet doesn't work. So can you provide that information that you sent me? I would be happy to. I'm so sorry. Technology. Look at you prepared with paper. Thank you. Okay, so there are 343 staff members, certified teachers, I'm sorry. And since August 8th, they've used 277 sick days. There's been some can you say what this is, FSPRA? Is that short term?
That stands for Families First Coronavirus Response Act.
Okay, so it's short-term disability related to care.
Right, so it's the act that provides paid up to 2 weeks of paid sick leave if somebody needs certain, there are 6 different criteria.
And then classified staff, there are 439 people, and they've used approximately 57 days. So that's 2 months. That's pretty significant. Is that not significant? You can.
If you look at last year's data, compare it to last year's data, I think that's.
It is?
No, you haven't left it in reserve. I asked that question because I thought it seemed like a lot.
Yeah. So it does seem like a lot, and that's really not sustainable.
Well, what is it compared to last year?
Yeah.
Did you have those numbers, what's compared to the previous year?
So for certified staff, it was a comparison of about 275 days to 225 days for the same date.
So 50 days different. 50 days is still quite a bit, and that's only 2 months. So that's, I mean, that's significant in my mind. Thank you, Angela, for the question. Are we penalizing, teachers for breaking contract if they decide that they, for whatever reason, don't feel safe? And so at this time, if the teacher decides to quit, they are not required to pay the whatever contract breaking.
Right, we're not enforcing that position.
Okay. I've got a list, guys, sorry.
Jen, let me see, does anyone else want to involve or come on? You show me over here. Okay, you're good.
So the, let's see, communication, okay, so communication with the Mojave Community. I just want to make sure that the board recognizes that the only way we get information, if we have a positive, is if the parent or the student self-report.
That's what you just said.
That, and I just want to, we're having a conversation, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm glad you're having the discussion with the county health department.
Yeah, I think our hands are.
You're gonna call every day to see. That's our next.
Yeah, I think that's one of the what she can.
So, right, but we're about to go full in person and we're gonna put all of these students in the classroom. I just want to hear the board's thoughts on the fact that we could have positives in the school and we, like you just said, our hands are tied, whether we have all the information or not.
Right, and I think we need to continue to do a good job on educating the family about when to stay home and when they need to self-report, and this water needs to keep, checking every day. For sure.
And we're publicly saying, please, wear your masks in public. Do not let your child get sick because you don't want to wear a mask. Parents, please.
And I like the idea that it's gonna be monitored, and I like the idea of the green, yellow, and red, like, that you're going to put out on the website.
So, let's see, on the data you provided in the survey, I know we like to compare things, oh, this number is larger than this number. But I want to point out that 131 people surveyed do not feel safe. That represents 28%, but that's 131 people that work for our district. So, I want to point that out. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
I would also like to comment just that this is scary for everybody. And I really feel for everybody that's coming in every day and dealing with the stress of not knowing, am I going to be subjected to somebody who doesn't even know they have it? And kudos, it's really difficult, I know, for all of us.
Dr. Moore, I have a question. Mrs. Young stated about your, you want to go away. Is that, are you doing that, or is that just a suggestion?
That was a suggestion that came today that we kind of move forward on.
Okay. Do you feel like you have the authority to, at any given point, to say, stop, we're going back to hybrid? Do you feel like you have to have the board gather to meeting or?
That is a very good question. I would like to not have to wait a month, like a meeting, if our data changes, and we feel like we need to make that drop back.
Or if we have an outbreak.
Yeah. I would like to notify you that there's an outbreak and we're going back, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem, I don't think the board has a problem, that we would appreciate if you would do that.
That's the question, is legal out.
So can you give that direction, or should we take a vote?
We can give, I mean, we can definitely
Okay.
give that direction to Dr. Demore.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'll ask this to you guys and Star. Can I call individual board members to have dialogue?
According to open meeting law, you can individually.
Like if I
Because
can
it's
and
you.
Beth and Charlie and Bruce and you.
Because we can't do it to each other, but you can.
Well,
She can't do a quorum, right, okay.
Not to necessarily take a vote, but just say, here's our data, brainstorm with you, we've all been on this together, what are you hearing, what are you thinking?
And I think you and you may already have this resource, but if you had some sort of task force or someone at your side that you can consult with when making those decisions, like if you have medical physicians from CNC or fellow superintendents, or, but I would assume you have those at your disposal already.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I did, yesterday, and we're, I'm just being transparent on that, yesterday was a pretty big day, to be honest with you. I think what I learned is, I said to Jerry, I have no fear of having a very passionate, honest conversation with anybody that I need to, because it's that important. But, yeah, I think I'm in a good line of communication with some people in the Mojave County Health Department right now. I think it's important, because I do believe that the data usually can really be done.
Have you said you got that form letter? Yeah. Has that been sent out to parents in that classroom?
They just gave it to me, but their school ended before I got it, so they will get it in the morning. We're gonna do the whole grade level, not just the classroom, because they go out to recess.
And, so what is the timeline from when you call in the morning, they give you the information, yes, you have a case in your school, perhaps even by class, and by the time you communicate with the parent that there's an issue?
Well, it would have, hopefully it'll be by the end of the day. We certainly do not want what just happened Tuesday, to Thursday, on Monday, to Wednesday. Our month will be by the end of this. And if you can't do it by the end of this, make it by the end.
And how will that letter be put in the black folder in the backpack? Or how will that be further?
I think it should be go twice, right? It could go in the backpack and it could go in the mail. Or depending on the size.
If a child is tested positive, wouldn't the parents be told that they need to be quarantined?
Yes.
Okay. So then they would be coming back.
They're told to quarantine, to all of the siblings in the home, all of the siblings home, and they are encouraged to notify the school. And in this case, the parent did, I guess I don't know, she doesn't identify. But Thursday, to me, those are 3 days that we could have had the letter ready, had the contact.
Is there a way for that parent, so let's say they get a positive result on Saturday, is there a voicemail they can leave somewhere that's specific to reporting a positive, that they can reach any time of day and someone is checking it regularly, or do they have to go through the at 9, 3 sort of situation?
No, that's not, that's just, we could do it on our website, the webmaster
that all through the weekend and forwards the appropriate person. So there's folks in there now.
Yep, we can totally make that happen.
Forward that to register right away.
Because that requires internet. I'm saying
Sure.
they call.
Yeah.
I mean, we
But
talked
if
about.
you get, if you get a cell phone or a number that you hold into, you'll be able to do that.
Angela and I talked today, I mean, we're on the same line as you. I spoke with Angela today about having a district point of contact, who is the COVID receiver of information, so principals always help very much, whichever one we are, supervised. But we're going to have anyone else in the district, this could feed into your piece of the contract. One point of contact in the car who's always here. We thought about maybe she's in charge of the health, but she's on the timing on this, right? One of the strategic point of contact is generally always here or a backup. So we have started that process here, and we can add that to the piece for the family.
Yeah, the easier we can make it for them to report, the better.
We have to give that, and I will, and we've got spread that number to them, so whenever they get it, then they can say, here's the number. So they help them on it.
Recommend the call.
So I'll make a motion that, we are giving the board authority to make immediate decisions as to these is necessary. About.
Oh, perfect. Well, I think you have the authority to do that based on our, policy, on our board policy, is that we fall under the line of emergency and things like that, and you have to make those decisions immediately. But, so this is why I wrote, I think the board wants to change it. Give the authority to Dr. Warner to change the delivery of learning based on the best decisions using available data, advising the board members, colleagues, and medical professionals at any time during the 2021 academic school year. Basically, I was just saying what we talked about there. If you feel it's necessary to change the delivery model from 100% in person, a hybrid, and hopefully never back to virtual, that you have the authority to do that. As board members, I think we can just discuss those individuals, but we cannot make any decisions on that unless we need it.
I don't like this. I mean, if I were sitting in Rex's seat right now, I'd be like, okay, now. I do not want that responsibility to fall solely on me. It's 24 hours, right? There's so long that the agenda has to be posted for us to be able to have a forum. We could probably within 24 hours get 3 of us on.
Well, I think she said she was okay with that, unless I misunderstood you. And if you didn't want to do that, you said, you know what, I need the board to move it. I know sometimes it's difficult to get us together.
That's why I
and you
said I
have-
like to be able to call.
Yeah,
Don't second that motion, but
so we have
either way, but I don't want to leave on, so we don't leave a week, or the status changes and have to be back on. I want to be able to every Thursday say, we're good or not.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Was that really correctly? You said it's under the-
I'll read it again.
I'll try.
That's not correct.
I make a motion to give the authority to Dr. Dorner to change the delivery of learning based on the best decisions using available data and advising the board members, colleagues, and medical professionals at any time during the 2021 academic school year. You can work from the Thursday night. Yeah, but, are you okay with that?
I'm still not okay.
Just because you don't want it to be all stuff on her, but
Yeah.
The thing is, she can make a decision to do it, but if she doesn't feel comfortable, you can conference 2 of us in at a time.
But ultimately, the responsibility falls on her, and that decision falls on her, and our conversations are not on record. So I would not, if I were in her shoes, would not want that responsibility on record as me saying that. I think we are the board, that is our responsibility, and it shouldn't fall at one of us, let alone the superintendent. I think within 24 hours, we can get three of us in a room and make a quorum and make a decision. I don't think that's a problem. And I don't think it should.
You wouldn't have to get us in a room to conference it, as long as you post it.
That's right, we could post it and we could have a virtual. But I just don't think it should fall on one person, that responsibility.
Yeah, I think it gives her the option.
Right.
It does.
Her option.
It was up to you. Okay.
That makes sense to me, and I will tell you what I would probably do. Unless there was an absolute emergency and I couldn't get three of you, and it was in the best interest of the district, I have no problem making that decision. But my pattern of behavior would be, I did this with principals, I did this a ton with principals, March, April, May, June, July. I would text, or I would tell Star, who was 24 hours, if I say I need an emergency meeting on Zoom at X number of time, and they would all show up. So I would be very happy to do that, and then if you guys, three of you can't show up, then you have that backup authority to say, we got that one, that would be great.
You
Feel better about that? Okay.
We have a motion, second, any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes
I love that.
5-0.
Are you
Item,
guys available tomorrow?
You have to.
Sunday?
item 15 is to approve the listed donations.
I'll approve. I'll make a motion to approve that was a donation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion?
With our intense gratitude.
Definitely. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 16, move to ratify the termination of employment of Cassie Smith, reasons stated in the confidential memo to the governing board. Oh, do that? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, actually, we need to approve the termination of employment.
Okay. And as Ms. Smith is not here, so we do not need to go into executive session, do you want?
I have questions
So,
about it.
okay, so we have, do we have a motion? And then we can have discussion.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second, okay, so now we're in discussion, Ms. Sherman.
I would like to hear the details of it, because based on the information we were provided, there's a lot of questions. So I would like to go into the executive session and learn more about the details.
Okay, so, we will move to item 17 and see if the board wants to move into executive session. So do I have a motion to move into executive session to determine employment of Cassie Smith? We have a motion, do we have a second?
Okay.
We have a motion and second in discussion, so all those in favor of moving into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
So the motion fails, so we are not moving into executive session. So we are, what was this? Okay, so we are in regular session still, and
We have a motion.
okay,
The motion on the
so we had, I'm sorry, we had a motion and a second on item number 16, and we should have voted on that. So let's move back to item 16. So we had a motion and a second. So we're in discussion of item 16. So Ms. Shumway, we can discuss item 16 in public, correct? If Ms. Shumway has questions?
About the termination of employees,
because she's not here.
Let me, Ms. Shumway.
I would want it to.
I wouldn't either.
Okay,
And
then,
that's what the executive session would have been, was to have that conversation.
okay.
Amongst the board,
Right.
Okay, so
what's the difference?
What's the motion?
Streaming. I mean, as an audience, that you don't want to discuss.
Ms. Shumway, let me just.
I'm wondering, maybe, is do a motion and a second on the 16th, we need to finish the vote, we could say May to go into executive session.
I think we needed to address item 16 first, not 17. So right now, we're in item 16.
Which is determining.
Yeah, see, I think that's.
It should have split.
Yeah.
That should have been after that option to go to executive session. On the agenda. Which is where we would say, wait, we want to go into executive session. Or we have, yeah.
We voted not to go into executive session, now we need to vote on that.
Michelle. Oh. Yes.
I'm over here, that's something else.
Oh, I'm sorry. Angela. You can help you. Angela.
So I think, what our normal process is to, make a recommendation, and then if the governing board wants to discuss any particular issue, then there's that option to move into executive session. It's my understanding that if Ms. Smith was here and was okay to kind of discuss it in a public forum, that we could do that, but I would say if there are if there are questions that we want to have a discussion, that would be a different opportunity to do that.
Okay. Okay, so we are on item 16. We need to ratify the termination, or would you say please not ratify the accept? Okay, we need to approve the termination of employment of Cassie Smith, reinstated in a confidential memo to the governing board. And we have a first and a second for the motion, and
If you vote, yeah.
yeah,
It's done. There's no discussion.
right.
Right, so now make the motion, if you want to go into executive session, and then we'll
They
come
did,
back
they said no.
on the 18th.
You have to go back to that vote now, since you denied the executive session.
Okay, so we're going to, vote on item 16. Okay. So we have a motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor of item 16, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The motion passes 4-1. Item 19, motion to move into executive session to discuss school board evaluation. We have a motion to move into executive session.
I'll make that
motion. We have a motion, second by Ms. Weiser. Any discussion? All those in favor?
I think if we were willing to discuss a termination in public, we could have this discussion in public.
We have a motion and a second. So Ms. Shelly made a point. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. So we're going to move into executive session. If we were hoping to have the executive session in here, if everyone is okay leaving. If you want to come back, and you want to wait out there, we can invite you back, but this will be the last item on the agenda. So, thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.
Somebody check this outlet, it doesn't work.
No, absolutely not.